Welcome to Famous Quotes. If I maintain my silence about my secret, it is my prisoner. If I let it slip from my tongue, I am its prisoner. The person who writes for fools is always sure of a large audience. Life is a constant process of dying. One of the greatest follies is to desire to be wise all alone. Patriotism, when it wants to make itself felt in the domain of learning, is a dirty fellow who should be thrown out of doors. Honor has not to be won. It must only not be lost. He who writes carelessly confesses thereby at the very outset that he does not attach much importance to his own thoughts. It is a wise thing to be polite. Consequently, it is a stupid thing to be rude. Life is full of troubles and vexations, that one must either rise above it by means of corrected thoughts, or leave it. The task is not so much to see what no one yet has seen, but to think what nobody yet has thought about that which everybody sees. The two enemies of human happiness are pain and boredom. Faith is like love. It does not let itself be forced. A man can do what he wants, but not want what he wants. What separates two people most profoundly is a different sense and degree of cleanliness. It is difficult to find happiness within oneself, but it is impossible to find it anywhere else. If we were not also interested in ourselves, life would be so uninteresting that none of us would be able to endure it. Happiness consists in frequent repetition of pleasure. All of man's troubles come from not knowing how to sit still. Life swings like a pendulum backward and forward between pain and boredom. Great men are like eagles, and build their nest on some lofty solitude. Hope is the confusion of the desire for a thing with its probability. Mostly it is loss which teaches us about the worth of things. No matter how much we try to disguise it, the fact remains that beauty is what we fall for. What people commonly call fate is mostly their own stupidity. The memory should be specially taxed in youth, since it is then that it is strongest and most tenacious. People of mediocre ability sometimes achieve outstanding success because they don't know when to quit. Most men succeed because they are determined to. To be completely alone is the only thing worth having. A sense of humor is the only divine quality of man. No one can escape from their individuality. Religion is the masterpiece of the art of animal training, for it trains people as to how they shall think. I have not yet spoken my last word about women. I believe that if a woman succeeds in withdrawing from the mass, or rather raising herself from above the mass, she grows ceaselessly and more than a man. All truly great thoughts are conceived while walking. Our own life is the instrument with which we experiment with the truth. A high degree of intellect tends to make a man unsocial. Politeness is to human nature what warmth is to wax. The wise have always said the same things, and fools, who are the majority, have always done just the opposite. A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom, for it is only when he is alone that he is really free. Hatred is an affair of the heart, contempt that of the head. Every man takes the limits of his own field of vision for the limits of the world. Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. In the sphere of thought, absurdity and perversity remain the masters of the world, and their dominion is suspended only for brief periods. A man's face is his autobiography. A woman's face is her work of fiction. Great minds are related to the brief span of time during which they live as great buildings are to a little square in which they stand. You cannot see them in all their magnitude because you are standing too close to them. The majority of men are not capable of thinking, but only of believing, and are not accessible to reason, but only to authority. Marrying means to grasp blindfolded into a sack hoping to find out an eel out of an assembly of snakes. To forgive and forget means to throw away dearly bought experience. A pessimist is an optimist in full possession of the facts. There is in the world only the choice between loneliness and vulgarity. All young people should be taught now to put up with loneliness, because the less man is compelled to come into contact with others, the better off he is. Wealth is like seawater. The more we drink, the thirstier we become. In our monogamous part of the world, to marry means to halve one's rights and double one's duties. People of wealth and the so-called upper class suffer the most from boredom. It is only in love and murder that we still remain sincere. A great many people think they are thinking when they are merely rearranging their prejudices. All truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident. When we are young, the idea of death is something that doesn't enter our minds, because it is outside the scope of our imagination. Without books, God is silent, justice dormant, natural science at a standstill, philosophy lame. Education perverts the mind, since we are directly opposing the natural development of our mind by obtaining ideas first and observations last. This is why so few men of learning have such sound common sense as is quite common among the illiterate. The greatest of follies is to sacrifice health for any other kind of happiness. For our improvement, we need a mirror. Man is the only animal who causes pain to others with no other object than wanting pleasure himself. Sleep is the interest we have to pay on the capital which is called in at death, and the higher the rate of interest and the more regularly it is paid, the further the date of redemption is postponed. No one can construct for you the bridge upon which precisely you must cross the stream of life, no one but you yourself alone. We seldom think of what we have, but always of what we lack. Therefore, rather than grateful, we are bitter. A pessimist is an optimist in full possession of the facts. Hope is the confusion of the desire for a thing with its probability. Genius is talent set on fire by courage. The shortness of life, so often lamented, may be the best thing about it. If we suspect that a man is lying, we should pretend to believe him, for then he becomes bold and assured, lies more vigorously, and is unmasked. Man is never happy, but spends his whole life in striving after something which he thinks will make him so. If you want to know your true opinion of someone, watch the effect produced in you by the first sight of a letter from him. You are free to do what you want, but you are not free to want what you want. One should use common words to say uncommon things. The greatest achievements of the human mind are generally received with distrust. The difference between genius and stupidity is that genius has its limits. Just remember, once you're over the hill you begin to pick up speed. Treat a work of art like a prince. Let it speak to you first. Talent is like the marksman who hits a target which others cannot reach. Genius is like the marksman who hits a target which others cannot even see. The life of every individual, viewed as a whole and in general, and when only its most significant features are emphasized, is really a tragedy. But gone through in detail it has the character of a comedy. Changing alone is eternal, perpetual, immortal. Marrying means to halve one's rights and double one's duties. The fruits of Christianity were religious wars, butcheries, crusades, inquisitions, extermination of the natives of America, and the introduction of African slaves in their place. A high degree of intellect tends to make a man unsocial. Genius and madness have something in common. Both live in a world that is different from that which exists for everyone else. Music is the melody whose text is the world. We can regard our life as a uselessly disturbing episode in the blissful repose of nothingness. We forfeit 3/4 of ourselves in order to be like other people. Compassion is the basis of all morality. Buying books would be a good thing if one could also buy the time to read them, but as a rule the purchase of books is mistaken for the appropriation of their contents. The first 40 years of life give us the text, the next 30 supply the commentary on it. The greatest wisdom consists in knowing one's own follies. Reading is thinking with someone else's head instead of one's own. To feel envy is human. To savor Schadenfreude is devilish. Thanks for watching.